Welcome to the HiRSE-Seminar series on research software engineering in Helmholtz and beyond.
Okay, thank you very much, René. Perfect introduction. I couldn't have done it better. So thank you very much for that. And also thanks for having me here. My name is Tobias Schlauch. I'm working at the German Aerospace Center at the Institute for Software Technology. I'm also coordinating software engineering activities at DLR. And one aspect is also to help our researchers when publishing software with the topic of software licenses. And here, the title doesn't imply you shouldn't need to know more. You can always get more understanding of the things you're doing, I guess. But I want to give you at least some basic overview information to avoid some common traps that you might come up then at a point where you want to publish it and then you don't have so much time and then you get a bit into trouble and things like that. And some of the things are of the typical traps you can also avoid beforehand. Okay, let's go into it. First of all, I think you will need to have a quite basic understanding why you have to deal with software licenses. And one of the origins of that is also copyright. So I want to give you some copyright basics here. First of all, why that's important for software, because also software is protected by copyright, and copyright usually protects the expression of an idea. So that means the concrete thing, the concrete image, the concrete text. And it also implies that a human being sat down and took his or her skills and created something special. And this concrete thing that has been created, this has the potential to gain protection by copyright. Okay. And yeah, you also know this maybe from text and things like that. And software or the source code, or then later the executable version of your source code, this executable program, also gets this protection by copyright. And the special thing is that copyright laws usually only give the creators of that work a specific protection, which means that copyright grants you as a creator exclusive rights, such as using the actual work and also building upon that work, making copy of it, giving that work to someone else to under certain circumstances and things like that. And this is also a bit the bridge to the software licenses, because only with copyright in place, you always would have this point-to-point negotiation, which is maybe not, which doesn't scale very well, to be honest. So particularly if you want to reuse software in a larger public, if you consider open source software, that gets quite problematic. And for that reason, we need to talk about software licenses. Also, I think one interesting point with regard to software is also who's considered a copyright holder of a software. So there's one specific aspect that not only the original author, but also people contributing to a software later are also considered as copyright holders. And that also means that this group of people then later jointly exercises these rights that are granted by copyright. This can be interesting, particularly if you want to change the license at some point. For that reason, you find also sometimes that companies or open source foundations ask you to transfer your rights to them because they want to keep that in one place to be able to react and, for instance, change a license later. Because you can imagine if you have a very large group and everyone needs to agree on that, that can be also quite problematic at a later point here. And what I think is also important to know, if you're particularly employed at a research center or a company or something like that, that usually with that contract in place, if you're doing something as part of your work, creating software as part of the work, usually these exclusive rights are handed over to your employer. And for that reason, but this is also similar if you maybe want to publish a scientific paper, you also have to ask for permission in some way in your organization. So because this is also because of this handing over of the exclusive rights to the employer. And there's also maybe also copyright works also a bit different depending on your local law. And there's also one special thing in the German copyright law is that you cannot transfer all of your exclusive rights to someone else. There are some rights such as attribution, so that your name is put somewhere so that you have originally created that, even if it's more or less the other rights are handed over maybe to your research center. This is some special thing, and you cannot transfer it in other legal systems. This is possible here. So this is also the German word is for that Urheberpersönlichkeitsrechte, if you want to later look this up. Okay, questions we can take at the end, if that's fine for you, okay? Because otherwise, I will try to make my way through, but we can please note them down, and then we will have time afterwards for that. So, but that are some important things I usually would, things that are important also to know with that regard here. Then we come to the software licensing part here. And as I already, software licenses are kind of legal contracts here, which give you some rights, but also usually come with obligations here for you. And they are also here important so that you don't have this point-to-point negotiations here. So software licenses also kind of standardize the way how you can give rights with, for instance, using the right or building your own work upon that to others here as well. And there we have so typical software license types are proprietary licenses here. So that are, for instance, commercial license. If you maybe use MATLAB or something, this is an example of a commercial license. There are ways that you combine your code with their code and distribute that things. But usually you have to carefully go through the paragraphs there, and also sharer licenses or proprietary licenses. So very specific license conditions that you make up for certain situations here. And then we have the situation of public domain, which more or less means that no specific obligations come with that piece of software when you use it here. And then in the middle, we have this important class of free and open source software licenses. They are important because there's a lot of software available and published under such a license. And they are kind of standardized, which means there's, for instance, the open source initiative, which makes sure that a license which claims to be a free and open source license fulfills certain properties, for instance, that you don't say, you can use it only in that country and things like that. And usually this also means that you can freely redistribute the code and use it and so on. But still, they come with rights, making copy of it, using of it, building your work on that, and things like that. But it also comes with some obligations here. And with regard to software licenses, I think there are, particularly the free and open source software license, I think there are two categories which are you should at least have heard about, and that are the copyleft and also the non-copyleft, or sometimes they're also referred to as permissive licenses here. Usually, if you integrate code which comes with a non-copyleft license, there are only a few obligations, which usually makes it also a bit easier for you later to distribute or publish your own combined work later. So usually they come some with obligations such as maybe the CC BY 4 that you CC BY licenses that you might know maybe from documents or from data sharing, that you have to attribute the original copyright holder, saying, oh, this is from that and this institute person, and also link to the license there as well. So these are usually the obligations that come with that, but details again depend on the concrete license here. Examples are maybe BSD licenses or MIT license, Apache license 2, and others here as well. And on the other hand, we have the copyleft licenses here, and they originate from an organization such as the Free Software Foundation. You maybe have heard of them here. And here I think it's important to understand the idea that is behind such a license here. So a quite popular license is a GNU public license, version 2, for instance. I think this is under which Linux is distributed still. And here the idea is that you as a user, if you receive an executable program, you should be also entitled to receive the full corresponding code to understand what's going on your computer, what's happening there, to do bug fixes and things like that. And I think this is important when dealing with these copyleft licenses here, to keep that in mind, what the idea here is. And there's sometimes, if you use code under such a license, you maybe have heard of this viral effect, and that you have to make available all of your own code here. That's true to some extent here. So that also is, for instance, if you combine your code with a copyleft license, such with code under a copyleft license, and you distribute that whole thing to a specific user, the user also can ask you for give him or her the full corresponding code, which also includes your code here. So sometimes you want that, sometimes you talk about technology transfer and you don't want to provide your code. So, but it's also, I think, important to keep in mind if you want to have that or not, or what maybe also the implication that this could be an implication if you use code under a certain license from someone else. However, I think the most two important takeaway points here is maybe the third one or the first one, I would say, to get an idea, okay, for what are software licenses and what are important categories. But also please make sure that every code that you use, that it has a clear license and you understand this license. Otherwise, you have to contact the authors if there's no license. I think there are still also a lot of code available on platforms such as GitHub, which don't any license attached. So this might be still the case here. Also provide your code to others under a clear license, so that they know under which conditions they can reuse your code. And also take care when combining it, combining code under different licenses here. Think of these copyleft, non-copyleft categories. That's already, if you know a license falls under this or this category, you also have an idea of some of the applications that come from that. And yeah, I think that's the basic things I would say here that are important to understand here. Also, when you now want to publish your code, I have here a very minimal license checklist for that. Yeah, for this part of the licensing aspects here. First of all, when I plan to publish a software, I would first think about under which license I want to provide that. And in my opinion, this is already a kind of a strategical decision that you take. So maybe you say, I want to make reuse of my software as easy as possible. Then you maybe want to provide your code under a non-copyleft license. Maybe you want to make sure that also people that change code and distribute that code also have to make available their changes, and maybe a copyleft license is more suited for your case. There's also the possibility that you say, okay, I provide my software under an open copyleft license, and then I have a second commercial license to balance whatever aspects you want to consider here. And also keep in mind that maybe not all aspects that you would like to have are best expressed via the license, okay? But that are at least, I hope I could give you at least one or two ideas what to consider here. And then also when you come up with the license or your license decision, also keep in mind that this needs to fit with the dependencies of your program that your program has. So please also keep in mind there's code under different license. There could be problems such as license incompatibility, particularly if you have more than one different copyleft license in place. And This is also, for that reason, I think it's also quite important already. If you are in development, maybe you have not published it yet and develop it internally, that you keep in mind that you consider the license under which a package is provided here. Okay, and particular if you maybe to differentiate a bit of what's your area as a kind of a software developer here. I would also say, okay, it's important to care about the license under which a library comes. But when it comes to say, okay, you have a lot of license and you feel overwhelmed and there are a lot of different copyleft license and you're lost. So maybe this is the point that you should also reach out to some people with some more legal background in that area. So particular license compatibility, I would say is a bit more out of scope from an RSE perspective. And then also this checklist, you already see that this is also made more with in mind that you're working at the research center and things like that. If you know, okay, I want to publish that package in this and that way, you also need to somehow ask for permission for doing so. And this might be quite differently organized in your institute or in your organization. And here you need to ask your supervisors, your head of department, or whoever to find out about how this is organized in your research center, for example, here. And then also the last aspect is also when you know, okay, I provide this and that source code under this license and that are the copyright holder information here. How do I do this? How do I attach those information properly to my code repository here? And this is, I want to go a bit into more detail by using an example. But before we go there, again, here find out please about your organizational processes, because here you know about that, maybe where you can get support, who makes what decisions and so on. And also, if you are unsure, particularly with the list of licenses that you have, and if it's compatible to what you want to have as a license and so on, maybe try to reach out to legal support at your organization. Also in HiFIS, briefly, René talked about that in the beginning. We also have a consulting service which can help to some extent with that, with the practical aspects here. And also at DLR, we have a open source brochure, which is only available in German language right now, but gives a lot of more background information about the things that I talked and much more details and so on. So. And also particularly looks at some use cases. I combine my code with a library under this and that license, and what does that mean, and so on. So if you want, you can check that out. All right, let's come to the example, and then we are already through that talk. I have here used the data publication as an example. I want to use a data application. It's just a very small example we did for workshops, so it's not a real thing, but it already shows some aspects that I think are quite common. So it's a data publication. It consists of a data set, a script in Python, which does some analysis. It uses, at least in the Python world, some well-known libraries to do that, pandas and matplotlib. And yeah, pandas for preparation of the data and working with tabular data, and matplotlib for creating the final figures that I maybe used in a research paper or something like that. And I want to provide this maybe on GitHub in a Git repository, all these things together, and also then want to attach this to my research paper that I might have written about it. And here we have the scenario, which also fits to what I assume in the checklist I presented before here. First thing is I created this piece of work as completely on my own as part of my job. I want to publish it alongside with my research paper. And my idea is I want to make it as easy as possible for others to use that code and check this code and things like that. So, and now let's go through the checklist and see what we have to do here, maybe, or how we can approach that. First of all, we need to think about the license we want to choose. I already said my ideas, I want to make reuse as easy as possible, particularly for the code. Maybe I can now take into account maybe some organizational recommendations if you know about them, but there's also okayish website that you can use to give you a bit an idea of the different categories as well. This is chooselicense.com, and which can also help you with this first decision. I will use a very small and simple license here. It's the MIT license. It is a non-copyleft license here. Still, I would like to check whether this fits well with also the license of the dependencies here that I have. When you check the dependencies, I would recommend at least to check the direct dependencies here. You can do this manually. You also need to take into account the version of the library that you use, because it could be possible that version 1 is under this license and the version 2 is under a different license. So you also have to take the license, the version information into account. But there's also in the Python world some tools for that. Here's an example, which in this example in the screenshot, I'm using LickCheck to check my direct dependencies here. And here, important for me are here matplotlib and pandas. It also points out the versions that are used and installed here, and also gives me an idea of the license. Basically, this is fine because there are also non-copyleft licenses here. Also, please make sure that you know which libraries which libraries your code actually uses, because for some linting purposes I use a tool such as Flake 8 here, but this is not a part of my kind of productive code, this analysis script. Flake 8 is never imported, for instance, by that script here, and for that reason, for that kind of decision, this is out of scope. This is sometimes a bit tricky to understand. Okay, that are my executable programs, and really also to find out which dependencies go in which program here. Okay. But I also have here a special case that I have some artifacts I want to publish that maybe are not a perfect fit for my software license here. So we have maybe also the need for some different licenses here, maybe some licenses that are more suitable for data or for documents and things like that. And here is, this is also I want to do properly here in my example here. So I don't want to use this MIT license for all the things I want to publish here. And maybe I come up in the first place with this decision here. So as I created it as part of my work, so the German Aerospace, in my case, or Aerospace Center would be the copyright holder. Source code I want to publish under an MIT license. And for instance, things like my documentation and the plots, I want to use the CC BY license because it fits better to this type of artifact here. And let's say my boss is fine with that. But then if you have such a situation, this is usually a bit more tricky to say, okay, how do I provide this information properly to users so that they clearly understand which part is under which license. Often you will find the practice that there's only one license mentioned, but even for pure software repository, that's usually not the full truth in the repository. You likely will have code which comes maybe from others, maybe use a header library in the C world, where you also have code from others, for instance, Google Test in your code repository, and that's maybe not the same thing that you want to have for the same license that you want to have for your own code. So, or you have maybe a web application and there are images from an artist and who is providing this under this and that licenses here. And there are a lot of situations, despite of that, what I'm showing here, where you might want to know more concretely and express this more concretely, which copyright holders are in the repository hidden, so to say, and under which licenses are these things provided here. And what is currently, I think, a quite practical solution for that is the reuse software specification and helper tool. This is something the Free Software Foundation Europe came up with, and they basically use a quite established but also quite heavyweight standard. It's SPDX for expressing copyright and license information here. But I think they did a good job in providing that in a lightweight way to use for you as a software developer here or a research software engineer. They also provide a helper tool which assists you in many situations and also tell you a bit how to organize things in your repository properly here. And yeah, let's, as a final part of my talk, let's walk through the steps here. So the first idea is that your repository is self-contained in the way that it provides all the text of the licenses that are referenced in your repository here. And here's the idea is that you have a licenses directory and where you find the plain text version of the different licenses here. You can craft this manually for your repository if you want, but I also have shown here the reuse tool where you have a download subcommand, which really adds those license texts from the standard SPDX license list data repository to your repository here and creates this directory for you. So this is one thing here. Maybe later you change something and you have a reference to a new license. You can also only download missing licenses that are not yet, that are referenced but not yet put in the licenses directory here. This could be a first step if you want now to prepare your repository here. And then I think the second and maybe more labor-intensive step is really to provide copyright and license information for every file here. So that's really the idea. Otherwise, it's sometimes hard if you have too many implications to find out under which licenses, how the files under which licenses are combined later. That is something that you usually want to know for this license compatibility thing here. And here you can, for instance, use can do this again manually, or you can use a reuse annotate subcommand here, where in that example here, I assign the copyright German holder, German Aerospace Center, and the reference to the license MIT to all files that are available in my code directory here. And basically what reuse is doing here is it will adapt the header and add some commands here and add these typical SPDX tags here for expressing copyright holders and also the license under which this file is provided here. This SPDX license identifier also allows you to express more complicated or address more complicated situation where you maybe have different licenses or part of your file are under different licenses, and at least on a high level, you can express it by combining the logical operators, MIT, and whatever other license had here is used here. And it also handles quite well different file types, so you have different command styles in there. It also understands how to handle uncommentable files, and there are also some wildcard options to express this whole directory is under that copyright and license and so on. So this is basically what you can do in this step. And if you then have attached that information properly to every file, and there's also a linter which helps you to keep an overview and to see, okay, I didn't miss any important information here. I attached copyright and license information to each file and also added to all the the license text properly here. And this is also what you could, for instance, include in a build pipeline to check this continuously to get not out of sync with that. Okay. Also, reuse is, by the way, also written in Python. Anyway, and this brings me already to the summary of my, or finally to the summary of my talk here. So first, we took a look into the topics of copyright. So copyright protects software and grant particularly these exclusive rights to the creators, so-called copyright holders. We have software license as a way to grant others rights with regard to a software, but they also come with obligations. So please make sure that every code that you use is covered by the license. And there could be also some legal problems when combining a lot of different libraries under different licenses into one executable program. If you have a problem here, please reach out to someone with more legal expertise. These publication and how you publish your software really work quite differently depending on your organization. So if you don't know about this, please find out about your process here. And again, if you're unsure with something, try to find out a contact person which can help you with some legal advice in that regard. And finally, I showed you a small example and how you can use this reuse software approach from the Free Software Foundation Europe to annotate quite concretely copyright and license information to your repository. And that's basically it. Thank you.
Thank you for watching our seminar. Please check out the slides on Zenodo linked below and see you next time.